So this first section is from the first 10 years, basically, that I did Haiga. And that was from about 2010 to 2020. And just briefly, here are the tools that I use for this kind of art. You see my paints on the right. Those are Japanese Gansai paints. They're a kind of watercolor paint that's a little bit more opaque and vibrant than Western watercolors. A way of holding water that is unique. And then you can see on the left my stone and ink stick. So I grind the ink stone with a little water in the ink stick to make the black ink. And up in the top left is my little stamp, red stamp, and the ink for putting my seal on each piece. Cowlick, some part of me, still wild. This section is organized seasonally, roughly. The jingle of the dog's tags, wild current in bloom. Plain brown bulb, the mystery of becoming. Lines of foam, over and over the sea writes its story. Mountain meadow, 10,000 days, open race. Breeze through the oaks, something's still right with the world. A question answered with a question.
Annette, you're behind.
Hens.
You're a little ahead of yourself.
So many wishes, the weight of a dandelion. Our easy silence, every puddle, sky deep. Bend in the river, the obstacles that form us. For better or for worse, our lights and darks tumbling together. Mouth of the river, an ever-changing story told to the sea. Empty bowl. I explain daylight. Are you guys still able to see what I'm sharing? Because my internet is.
Yeah, you're sometimes you're reading the haiku before we see the image. I'm not sure if you're doing
I'm going to carry on assuming you can hear and see what I'm doing.
But, yeah, we can see.
A little bit.
If you could just slow down just a little bit we can absorb it, because each one's so precious. Another question I wanted to ask you, if we have a question, should we just wait till the end, or would you like us to raise it, at any time? Any particular preference there, Annette?
I think anytime is fine.
You can put it in the chat.
Yeah, I mentioned to John beforehand that we're having a big rainstorm here.
Yeah.
So our internet is cellular internet, and it can be a little bumpy sometimes when there's a lot of rain.
And we'll have time for questions and answers and just a general conversation.
Redwood
after
time.
the presentation.
The steady journey from earth to sky. That broke up a little bit, so maybe we should move the Q&A to the end. It might be a little more streamlined that way.
Yeah,
'Cause I
okay.
couldn't hear the question.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, thanks. Evening stars, one by one counting our blessings. Fox tracks, who was I before I was tamed? The time we are given, sparks rise through darkness to join the stars. I'm not sure if this is coming through for you guys, because you're frozen on my screen.
Yes, we see it. Oops.
Yeah,
And now we
you were
don't see
seeing
it.
everything was coming through just right. Sometimes you were reading the haiku a little bit before you showed the picture, but that's okay. All right, is Annette here or did we lose her? I think we might have lost Annette.
Yeah.
Okay. She'll come back, I think. Hopefully.
I'm just a few miles away and I have landline internet because my cellular doesn't work properly. And that all coincided with an absolute downpour when Annette went
Okay.
off. We've got a
Yeah.
storm right now.
Yeah, she said there was.
Mhm.
Let's see, I think we had one person join. Oh, here, Annette's back now, I think. Hey, Annette.
Yeah.
Okay, we lost you, but now you're back. You'll have to start sharing again at the point you left off, I guess. The pace when you slowed it down like that, it was really effective. I appreciate that.
Okay, yeah, my internet connection got dropped out for a bit, so I apologize. It's raining very heavily right now here. We're supposed to get 2 inches of rain today, so part of that's coming down right now. The time we are given, sparks rise through darkness to join the stars. Water and stone, how we shape each other. Fog-shrouded coast, we listen to the view. I hope you were able to see at least some of that. I couldn't tell how good the connection was. Those pieces are among the 50 Haiga that are in my book, Water and Stone, which is on Amazon and also on my website, makinostudios.com. And now we're getting to the collage Haiga, called Torn Together. And these I started doing in 2020 during the pandemic. And so briefly, this is my setup in my studio. I paint papers with acrylic paint that is light fast. so it won't fade over time. And I'll use Japanese washi papers or book pages, or old letters or maps for my paper. And then I have a tote for each different color family. So, and here is a piece in progress where I sketched out the image and then pulled out some colors that I want to use for it. And here is that piece finished. Flowering plum, a fisherman knee deep in spring. I'm not sure if this is connecting right now, but I'll just note that this is a bit of a mixed media piece in that I went in afterwards and used some pen and ink and some paint to do some of the detail on the blossoms.
Really nice.
Swirls of confetti from the cherry trees. Festival day. This piece incorporates some vintage Japanese stamps as lanterns and part of an airmail envelope. What remains of the mountain, sand between my toes. Before us and long after, curling waves. These circles I made by using the end of a paper towel roll dipped in paint, and these as well. Dawn's early light, the neighbor's peacock tunes up. Dream journal, the parts of us that rise from the deep. This piece also used some mixed media, a little bit of white paint and some charcoal and some colored pencil. Wind blowing upriver. One of the ripples becomes an otter. Cloud, sun, cloud are restless shadows. Deep river, the places that call us home. Here's the piece John was talking about that he owns. Long before language, the S of the river. Dogwood blossoms, the catch and release of evening light. Summer cabin, all night the rooster announcing dawn. Woodland edge, how to stay true to our nature. Kids all grown, we train the sweet peas up the trellis. Sorry, I'm reconnecting. Telephone pole. The woodpecker still using Morse code. Morning hike. My face undoing spider's work. Garden rose bush. We leave the bouquet growing. Sun-striped path. The forest's outbreath fills our lungs. Edge of the woods. The art of slipping between worlds. To accept the things I cannot change. Outgoing tide. To love this body just as it is. Twisted shore pines. Bright green needles on the fire-scarred redwood, what we've each survived. Purple fingers finding the sweetness among the thorns. All that I am, still unfolding, cherry tree in autumn. Sideways rain, a stranger's umbrella brushes mine. Fog becoming redwoods, becoming fog. Parallel worlds, the stack by my bed. This involves a little bit of stitching with silver thread right through the paper for those spirals. Oh, the top two spirals. The bottom ones are embedded in the paper.
Nice.
Oh, and a fun thing is I've taken inserts with all the different languages. If you need this translated, because I just love having all the different fonts.
Yeah.
This has a little bit of Russian, I think. Whose woods these are, the barred owl hooting to the stars. Tendrils of fog, I follow a thread back into the dream. There are Roosevelt elk that live around here and hang out around the lagoons and the redwood forests. Hunger moon, a descendant of wolves, licks our plates. Ponderosas, the soft thud of snow landing on snow. Waiting for whales, we settle for the ocean. To everything a season, persimmons taking their own sweet time. So that's the rundown on a sampling of my collages. And every year I collect these into a mini calendar that I sell in local stores and online. So it's a fun way to share Haiga. So maybe any questions or comments before I go into the next section?
Yes. This is Bob. I'll comment right away and say you blew me away with all this work. I mean, I've taken notes. You use such eloquent phrases and so simply, but so deep, philosophically deep. I'm gobsmacked. Thank you, Annette, for sharing this incredible work. Each one is a little gem. I won't do individuals. I'll just say that almost each one made me go, intake my breath and just think, this is how beautiful. That's it for me. So someone else, please go.
Thank you so much.
What can we say now, Bob? That was perfect. Every single one, I'm snapping my fingers. Thank you so much.
This is Catherine. That's truly lovely work. And I had a craft question here. What did you say that you used for background paper? Was it maps or prints from someplace else?
So I do use some maps. I use old letters and book pages. I also use washi paper that is from Japan mostly, that has textured vegetable bits in it, like rice straw. There's some from Thailand that has mango leaves in it, or cotton fibers, and it just gives you a lot of really cool textures. And they all start out white, and then I paint them for the color. Because if you start with commercially colored paper, it will fade in the sun.
Yeah.
So I want my work to be, archival.
Do you ever have to worry about copyright when you take pages like that out of a book?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Do you ever have to get permission or worry about copyright when you take pages out of a book to use in your own artwork?
I think you were asking if I have to get permission to take pages out of a book, is that right?
Yeah, to resell your own work with somebody else's pages in there. Am I being clear?
Can I jump in just because of the difficulty?
Yeah, I
Does-
just keep breaking up, but I'm going to guess what you said, which is about using pages from books. And what I do is I use books that are in the public domain. So they have been published at least 70 years ago. So I have, To the Lighthouse and Moby Dick, and I think I've got Hamlet going, just to not trip into some copyright issues.
Yeah, that's right, Annette.
Did I guess right?
That was Catherine's question. You answered
Yeah.
it perfectly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you,
it is
thank you.
it's a good consideration. Mhm.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Ann.
Yes, so
Yes,
far.
I'm interested in what kind of glue you use. Because I've tried rubber cement, the
Yeah,
decoupage.
so I am recently using matte medium, which is pH balanced and archival.
Okay, I've recently bought, it's
Yeah,
called
I mean, I definitely want
gloss
something that's
medium.
archival. So matte medium, golden matte medium is good, and also PVA, which is basically
matte.
white glue. I think it's polyvinyl acetate, or I'm not sure what the A is, but you'll find PVA as well.
Yeah, and it's
So
like to
I think
protect
it
your
seems like
work
most
also.
collage artists I know use matte medium.
So you use it also
I
to
didn't get that.
glue and to protect.
Mhm. Yes, it goes under and over and everywhere, and all over my
Yeah.
fingers.
Okay, good. Thanks.
You'll probably get into some of that here in this next section.
I figured.
Well, I wasn't going to go so technical, but are there any last questions before I go on? And were you able to hear and see okay? Because your images kept freezing and the sound would cut out, so I wasn't sure if I was talking to anybody or not.
No, everything was fine. The timing was
Mhm.
slightly ahead of itself sometimes, but that wasn't any problem. I agree with Susan's comment. I was going to mention your humor. I love your
Okay.
humor in that. You had presented at CPAC a number of years ago, and I was really struck by that also. And then as Catherine mentioned, the found pieces that you use those regularly in a lot of your pieces, with the old newspapers or letters. I think you use some of your own personal letters, you said in some. It's fascinating, your style. Have you met anyone around the world that does anything like you? I can't imagine.
Not exactly. No, there's, combinations of people who use found papers and letters. There's people who do Haiga, people who do collage.
Right.
I'm not sure if it all comes together in anybody else, but maybe after this presentation, some of you will start doing it.
Great.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about actually creating your own Haiga.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I wrote this down and I have to just share how I was blown away by Bend in the River, the obstacles that form us. I mean, that's an entire novel. It's what plays are based on, and you did it in what, 7 words or so. Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to present to such an appreciative crowd. All right, so to actually creating Haiga, here's a definition from the late, great Stephen Addis. He says, Haiga is the special word for a unique form of art. Hai comes from haiku, and the word originally had the connotation of leisure or amusement. As we know now, there used to be haiku parties in Japan that people would write verses for and at. Ga is the word for painting, so Haiga means haiku painting. So traditionally also the calligraphy was a key part of a Haiga, the actual writing of the haiku. But today the word Haiga seems to be broadened, or you could say variations of Haiga, to all kinds of materials, not just painting, and including photography and collage. So why would you want to create some haiga? Most of you, I think, are haiku poets. And yeah, just for me, it's about deepening the whole experience for both yourself as the poet and your reader. You could just get a whole nother dimension with the visual.
Did we lose everybody? Is it me or is
No.
it you?
Just Annette.
Not everybody. Probably just Annette.
It's just one of the obstacles that form us. Oh, she's back.
Hi, Annette, we see you now. Oh, you're frozen.
Did Annette freeze? I just stepped away for a moment.
She did. She
Looks
came
like.
by.
Okay.
I've lost her now.
Okay. We'll give it a moment. Yeah, what wonderful work. It's really inspiring, but it's so unique also. There's so many layers to her work, you know. I guess
Exactly.
yeah. I've been doing it with just photographs, which is difficult enough, you know, to match one of my own photographs with a haiku. There's so many ways to do it. Oh, Annette's back. Okay.
Yay.
Yeah. I was talking about why create haiga, and one of the treats about it is that it's more accessible to other people than haiku are. So we've all probably had the experience of saying, I'm a haiku poet, and then the other person says, haiku, right, I did that in elementary school. What's the formula again? Was it 575?
Right.
Anyhow, I get sometimes a bit of a sinking feeling, like, okay, how deep are we going to go in this explaining it? And maybe the person isn't really that interested in haiku or poetry in general, but with a haiga, it's very accessible because they can just see it. So and then finally you have a concrete product. If you're happy with it, you can hang it on your wall, you can put it on your social media page, and just share it in a way that is more appealing to a lot of people than just words. So I hear that a lot of you are artists, but some of you are probably thinking, I'm not an artist, I can't draw a straight line, I can't, whatever. And so I just want to provide some reassurance here. In the Japanese tradition, there was no artistic skill required, really. It was all about being authentic and being sincere and expressing your individual vision. So, for instance, this is a little haiga by Basho. It shows the front gate of his hut, his grass hut with the banana tree. And it's just kind of like a little sketch with pen and ink, or with brush and ink, and very simple and wonderful. I also want to say that even if you don't think you have a ability to technical skill for creating art, there's now digital photography and photo editing apps that make it really easy to do. But there's also some issues you need to be aware of with using photography for haiga, in my opinion. Okay, I almost didn't include this one because the internet gave me 3 different sources for who the painter is, and I don't have the words. Maybe one of you knows who it is, but these are the some of the names that came up in my search. But I just love this little sketch, and I just wanted to include it to say, look, you don't have to be a great artist to do something that's like really engaging and communicates and fun. I think this is probably a figure in a straw coat with a hat and a staff. Maybe they're crossing a bridge. Anyhow, it's almost like a doodle. So don't be intimidated. Here's another really simple but powerful one. It's of a staff. It's really kind of just a straight line with a little little string and some tassels attached. It's actually by a Zen monk who apparently was quite strict with his students and tended to whack them with his staff, whether they spoke or didn't speak. But anyhow, a nice example of super simple haiga. So the hardest part of creating haiku, I think, is this issue of finding the right distance between the words and the image. Some people called it minding the gap. So if you write haiku, which sounds like most of you do, you know that there's two parts of a haiku typically, and that not every effective haiku has this, but most have a kind of a distance between the one-line fragment and the two-line phrase. And there's like a link and shift. And so there's a similar shift in haiga, ideally, between the words and the image. And it's probably Michael Dillon Welch has described this as being that the words and image are at right angles to each other, so that the reader has some way to fill in the gap. It draws them in, and they kind of can add their own interpretation. Here's a piece by the wonderful haiga artist Ron Moss. It reads, "The first dip of my paddle, winter's end." And here we have just a simple, it looks like a brush painting, but he might have used some digital wizardry as well. It looked like a bird on a snag over water. So, here's Stephen Addis again. He's saying, in a fine haiga, the poem does not just explain the painting, nor does a painting merely illustrate the poem. Instead, they add layers of meaning to each other. Okay, I will say that is easier said than done, often. So what does make it easier is if you have a haiku that does not have a strong visual image. So there's nothing in the reader's mind that's really clear when they read it. So this is by Maxian Berger. It says, "Cognitive freeze synapsicals." And there's a photo I hope you can see of icicles on the edge of the building. So there's a nice disjunction between the words and the image. But like I said, the words are somewhat more abstract. You can also go the other direction fairly easily when you have a very visual haiku, but you have a more abstract image. So this is by Alice Bedard Voorhees. Says, "Plums to be pickled, a bowl of sky and water." And she has just a very simple painting. It looks like maybe some watercolor and a few lines of pen and ink to make a nice open-ended sort of haiga for us to study. Okay, I wanted to use a counterexample of a bad haiga. I didn't want to pick on anybody else, so this is one of mine from 2010, I think. This is the issue that when it gets hard is when you have a very visual haiga and you have representational art. I think it makes it harder to find that distance. So the poem here says, 4th of July, our dog celebrates under the bed. And now, knowing better, I would not have the whole story right in the art. I have the dog, the bed, the fireworks. And I would do something a little bit more at right angles to the words if I'm starting with the words. So when you have haiga that use photos, those are called shahai in Japanese. I think it can be tricky because photos have so much information, and it can be too clear in the reader's mind. But where I think photo haiga can be more effective is when you have really impressionistic photos, like simple landscapes or extreme close-up, like here. This is by Terry French. It says, "How softly his wizened cheeks wear tears." And yes, it's a leaf with water drops, but when you read the haiku, you can also see, yeah, that also kind of reminds me of wrinkles and tears. So I think that's very effective. And here's another nice example by Kathy Loram Cotton. It says, fox cubs leapfrog near the pond, ripple of tadpoles. And what she's done here is she hasn't shown the fox cubs, she hasn't shown the whole pond, she hasn't shown the tadpoles, but she's giving us a suggestion of a pond with this photo. And furthermore, she's looks to me like she's used a filter to make it a little bit more, slightly more abstracted. So I think photo filters definitely have their place if you're using them for Haiga. And then you can sometimes use a detailed photo if the words are not too close to the image. So another one here by Ron Moss, it reads, homecoming, hands held together in a deep bow. And after looking at this for a while, I thought, oh, that fern, that furled fern, I guess it looks like it could be bowing. And there's even maybe a suggestion of hands in there, but it's up to me, the viewer, to sort of make those connections. Here's another nice one with a detailed photo, but it shifts away from the words enough to make it interesting. It says, dying mall, a lone kiosk offers cash for gold. I think those are cottonwood leaves, maybe on a grate or a bench, by Mariel Herbert. So yeah, the last thing I want to say is these are just guidelines, and don't let them stifle your creativity because you get caught up in trying to find just the right distance. Here's an example of one of mine that probably breaks those rules. The words are baby sparrow, the thin line between falling and flying. And arguably you would not then want to show a baby sparrow trying to fly because it's too close to the words. You might want to show clouds or leaves or fields, or I had the idea even a paper airplane, but I'm happy with this as it is. I wanted to do this image. I wanted the nest. I wanted the little birds. So you still get to call the shots as the Haiga artist. And I'm not really going to talk about technique and materials here. It seems like a lot of you already have a running head start on that, but just want to say experiment and have fun.